Josh Moenning's at a city council meeting, and when he gets done with that, he's going to follow up in this presentation. But let me just give you a little background about what this is. About 16 months ago, the Exarban Foundation, now Exarban has been around for a long time, they want to be a statewide organization again, and they asked me in Norfolk and Matt Mazer, a lawyer down in Grand Island, if we would put together, each of us in our own areas, a group of people in our area to talk about workforce and the future of rural Nebraska, in northeast Nebraska and in central Nebraska. And I agreed to do that, and this is the outcome of that effort. And I want to say a couple things at the outset. What I'm presenting tonight is a proposal that a group of about 20 people worked on for the better part of a year after looking at the data. If you have ideas to make it better or ways that you think we could make it better, now's the time to talk and to share your thoughts. There are some people in this room that were part of this. Dr. Krivolovic was on this effort, Tracy Jeffrey, Gabe, Jared was at a lot of the meetings. Anybody in the audience that I'm not seeing right now that was part of this? So I want to just stress that this is designed for your feedback, and nothing's ever final, ever, as we try to make good things happen. And the other thing I'll say is, I see a lot of, if you're in your 20s, raise your hand today. I see a lot of people in their 20s here, and I will tell you that when I started my business in Norfolk, I was 24, and I remember coming to some meetings like this, and I was like, oh, this is a long way away from before I'm really at this level of contributing in Norfolk. And the reality is it's not. If this town is going to make you money, if this town is going to help you grow your business, if this town is going to help you raise your kids and create an unbelievable experience for children that you can't even think about yet or don't want to talk about yet because you're not even dating right now, the reality is every single effort that you put into this effort today is going to have dividends for the next 20 or 30 years. And you are the people we're trying to get it right for. Because as you'll see from the data, we have some real challenges. So with that, I'm just going to roll through these slides. There's not a lot of slides. Got to find this thing here. But the difference with this effort compared to a lot of the efforts that I've been involved in before is that we spent the first 3 or 4 months really working on trying to understand what the problem is according to the data. And I don't know if everybody can see this screen. If not, I'll try and do a good job of explaining it. But this is a map of the Midwest, and it basically, from the Federal Reserve Bank in Kansas City, it says in these different counties, this is what they primarily rely on for an industry with investment. As you can see, much of Nebraska is reliant on farming. The counties in Nebraska that aren't dependent on farming are dependent on other industries, and they're the ones that are growing. So you can see basically the Omaha area, Lincoln area, Tri-Cities, Scottsbluff, Sidney, Nebraska with Cabela's, we know that's changed recently, and then McPherson County, which is north of North Platte. And the reality is that while we do celebrate agriculture, and it is the backbone of this state, both economically and from a private industry standpoint, if you are successful in agriculture, you aren't creating a lot of jobs because technology is playing such a more important role in ag. If you're running a profitable ag operation, you're likely not to have 4 or 5 hired men on the farm because tractors can almost drive themselves. They apply the chemicals. There's so much efficiency you get from technology. And so we have to be creative and think about creating jobs that will create more jobs in industries that are diversified from agriculture. This is the hardest slide that I have to present. This is basically the net migration rate for Madison County from 2000 to 2010. I was your state senator during much of this decade, and I'm as responsible for this as anyone in the room. Essentially what the net migration table is, it says by age group, and you can see under 5, age 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, every 5 years, all the way to 85 plus, the Census Bureau looks at how many people net moved in or moved out of Madison County. And as you can see on this graph, we have a nice 5.2% bump ages 15 to 19, which I would credit the community college, because we have a lot of kids from the region that are moving into Norfolk to go to the community college, and their residence changes to Norfolk. But as you can see, we don't have a lot of green until we get to 70 plus. And it's reasonable to think that we have a lot of people moving into Madison County net positive because of our healthcare resources, because of our skilled and assisted living care facilities. But if you look at this graph here, from 20 to 34, we have a major problem where anywhere from 10 to 17% of those different groups are moving out of Madison County. And that's net out migration. And every year that we have that kind of a red bar on the chart is a 40-year problem. Because if you're a 26-year-old and you say, this doesn't work for me, I'm moving to Omaha, chances are you get married, you have children, she's from Omaha, you're from Norfolk, you've both got different jobs, and moving back home is a lot harder than it would have been at 24 if you'd met somebody and decided to start your family. And the reality is that until we confront what our problem is, we're going to continue to see negative population trends in our area. As you can see also, when you lose people 20 to 34, you also lose their children, ages 9 and under. And what's frustrating about this is, I went to all the ribbon cuttings in the 2000s, and every time we raised money for the water park, or the diving board, or the football fields, or the YMCA, or whatever it was, every single time at a ribbon cutting we said, we're doing this to bring our kids back. And the reality is that it didn't work for the purpose intended. It's not that those things aren't good things. In fact, if you look at age 35 on, with some limited exceptions, if you're married and you're raising kids and you're in Madison County, you're not likely to leave. Because this is a great place to raise a family. It is the right place for your children. This is the best place to grow up. But we're not keeping people from 20 to 34. And what's unique about this effort is that by using the data, we know what our problem is. Our problem is not creating an environment that is good for 30-year-olds raising children. Our problem is with trying to keep and attract young people ages 20 to 34. This is Pierce County. Pierce County, if you're married in 25, I'm guessing in Pierce County, you're not leaving. In fact, in this decade, look at, they had almost a 16% increase, 35 to 39. People are moving into Pierce County to raise their kids. But 54% of Pierce County residents are moving out from ages 20 to 24. And that is a 50-year problem. Because when you move out of town and you're 23, you're likely not coming back. But look at the stability of Pierce County with just minor losses, 70 plus. I'm sure we know where they're moving. Those families in their 70s are moving off the farm into Norfolk, closer to their health care services. Here's the same thing for Antelope County. You're starting to see a trend. 53% of 20 to 24-year-olds move out of Antelope County, and then it's fairly stable. I mean, if you take anything from these graphs, we do not have a problem 30 plus in these rural counties. People stay, and I'm assuming because they're married and they start having kids, and they know that raising their kids in Neely or Tilden or Clearwater is a great thing. There's just not as many people doing it because 54% move out in that young age range. Here is Cedar County. Look at the drop that starts 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 52%. And then look how stable it is the rest of their life. Knox County, same thing. And I'll tell you one of the problems, and if you're an employer in here, you know this, and even if you're not, you know this. I always pick on Chris Williams from News Channel, Nebraska. He's 23 years old. He moved here from Salt Lake City via Los Angeles, and he's a great guy. If I had a daughter, I would say, you need to marry Chris Williams. This guy is the real deal. He's exactly who you want to live in your community. He's nice, he's outgoing, he's energetic, and he loves his job. He says he loves his job. probably don't know. But when Friday night at 6 o'clock rolls around, and he doesn't have to come to work again until Monday at noon, it's not about professional development, it's about biology. And we all know very well that there's a lot of young people that we know will stay in town if they find a girlfriend, if they find a boyfriend, whatever the preference is. We know that if that happens, there's a chance we'll keep them. But I know the minute someone's driving to Omaha every Saturday or Friday night, that there's a likelihood that they're not sticking around Norfolk. And we all know that. Rural school superintendents know that if their young teacher is not finding someone to spend time with, that they are likely not going to renew their contract. These are facts that we have to come to terms with and talk about, because these are some of the challenges in a rural area. And it's no different. What were you thinking about when you were 23, 24, 25, 26, whatever age? You're thinking about, okay, I love my job, but am I ever going to have a family? Am I ever going to meet someone? And that is a real issue for a lot of people. And it was for me, you know. I was 24, and you know, I ended up finding this gal from Columbus, and it was on, you know, like that was what, you know, I had a plan. But you know, not everybody has that luck. Like, I'm in the radio business. I'm an extrovert, right? Not everybody's an extrovert. Not everybody is going to learn how to, you know, I met her at the Clearwater Rodeo. We've got some Antelope County people in here. But here's Wayne County. Look at Wayne County. This is interesting to me because look at 15 to 19, 106% net in-migration percentage. And then 40% 20 to 24, and then lose 75%, 25 to 29. That's Wayne State College, with quite an impact there. And then, just to put this in perspective, if you think we are winning on any front, let's come to terms with this. This is the counties to the north of Norfolk primarily. Cedar and Boulder at the top. They started in 1997 with about 900, 850 kids in their county in high schools. 20 years later, they're down to 600. So they lost 30% or more of their total kids enrolled in high school in a 20-year period. So there's some people that say, well, there's nothing you can do. I can guarantee you, if we do nothing, nothing is going to change. We are not winning, we are losing. And as people in Randolph leave, as people in Pierce leave, as people in Wausau leave, there's less people that come to Norfolk. And there's a lot of people in Norfolk that are convinced that things are going really well right now. That we've got these new restaurants, which we do, that we're proud of, and our Main Street looks good. The reality is, Norfolk's not growing, and when you look at the data, in 2023, our population starts to go down. Because you can't have this massive out-migration in these counties around us and expect it not to affect us. It is going to affect us in a very big way. And Norfolk today doesn't stay Norfolk. Norfolk today has a population that goes down, and it goes down fast starting in 2023. And this is our future. This is our present. And if somebody says we don't need to do anything, then tell me what town you want to live in, because it's not working. This is just Pierce County. 20 years ago, there were 11-man football games being played in Osmond and Plainview. That's changed. Pierce is an 11-man football school now, and I don't think that we can say in another 20 years it's going to stay there, because the kids are leaving that county. And when Pierce County isn't a strong place to raise a family, it's going to always be a strong place, but when the numbers aren't going our direction in Pierce County, those numbers come down to Norfolk, and they are going to impact us here. And so my point is that whatever we do in Norfolk has to have a connection to these small towns. Because if we let these small towns go down on our watch, this doesn't work here either. They are as important and directly connected to our growth. And these numbers prove it. On top of all of this, the reality is that things are changing. The Industrial Revolution, imagine being somebody on a Kansas wheat farm in 1870, and you're sitting out there with your shickle, and you're with your friends, and you're you're combining wheat, you're harvesting the wheat. And somebody says, someday there's going to be a train that's going to move the wheat, machines are going to take this over. And I'm sure people in 1870 said, yeah, whatever. They're never going to have enough people. There's never going to be a contraption that's going to make this go away. Well, it did. And what happened was mechanicalized machinery came in and replaced a lot of that. We call that the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution is sunsetting. And now the knowledge economy is in a sunrise period. The knowledge economy is different than the Industrial Revolution. The knowledge economy says, do you have the skills and the knowledge necessary to create new processes that disintermediate the supply chain? What does that mean? Think about Uber. Somebody in Boston decided that they were tired of calling a dispatcher to get a cab to come pick them up and take them to the airport. So they created an app. They got rid of the dispatcher and got rid of the cab and made somebody just happen to be driving down the street, get a ping to stop and pick them up and take them to the airport. And they eliminated the taxi dispatcher and they eliminated the taxi. They gave the money to somebody with a car, and that guy in Boston that thought of it, he gets paid $2 every time that happens. That's disintermediating the supply chain. They got rid of the dispatcher, they got rid of the cab. I want to ride, I have a car. Link those two up. That is what the knowledge economy does. It's doing it every single day. It's taking the people that serve in those middleman positions out of the economy. And that's hard because our parents were in those spots. Our friends are in those spots. Our friends used to sit down at a checking counter at Walmart and check people out. They aren't needed anymore because people self-check out. Those jobs are going away. If you can automate the job, it's leaving. Because for Walmart to be efficient and to compete in the marketplace, it has to do that. Look at Union Pacific Railroad. They've let go 7,000 Nebraskans in the last 2 years. And people get upset at them. They look at North Platte and they say, North Platte is losing these people. Well, the reality is if Union Pacific doesn't do that, it gets beat by CSX. It gets beat by BNSF or Southern Pacific. Because that's what the market demands. More automation, less human work. And we aren't going to change that. That is what's happening. And according to McKinsey, by 2030, these jobs and these industries are going to be reduced by this many percent, because of automation. It just so happens that the top 5 industries that are going to be impacted by the loss of these jobs happen to be Madison County's top 5 industries. And let's put names to those. Food services. Think of the Madison pork plant. Today, we have 2,000 workers that are there, mostly in low-scale production jobs. Doesn't mean they're not good jobs, doesn't mean they're not hard jobs, but they teach you how to do the job when you get there. By 2030, 73% of those jobs are going to be gone, they say, industry-wide, because Tyson and JBS and Cargill are investing hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars industry-wide to figure out how to create the machines that bring the pig in, kill the pig, open the pig up, harvest the meat, package the meat, process the meat, send it out. And instead of 2,000 workers, we'll have 400 workers. The difference is that 100 of those workers will be super highly skilled IT software engineers that run the machines that kill the pigs, that process the meat, that harvest the meat, that dispose of the carcass. There still will be jobs. They may be $100,000 plus jobs, and there will be more high-tech jobs, but there won't be 2,000, there'll be 400. Next is manufacturing. Norfolk Iron and Metal, Nucor, all of these different businesses. They are already investing in the machines that they need to be more efficient. And it used to be that you could grow up big and strong in Battle Creek and you could go to work at Nucor, and you still can, and you can make a good wage. But the reality is that the Nucors, the Norfolk Iron and Metals, and the people that make syringes and hoses, they need software engineers to run the machines that are moving their product through the mill. Next up, warehousing. Affiliated Foods Midwest, Associated Wholesale Grocers, 800 people work there. Jeff Bezos is running warehouses with machines only and just a few people. Like, we have a lot of change on the horizon. Agriculture. Anybody in this room can tell you that technology has impacted ag. And then retail. Check out Walmart and tell me how many people are working the checkout counters compared to 20 years ago. We know it. Like, I didn't realize it until I saw this, but it's all around us. It's taking our jobs all around us. There are fewer clerks because there are more people using automation. And so I will tell you, there was a time in November last year where I was like, what am I even doing? Why am I even trying? There's nothing I can change here. And I'm spending my time reading this data so that I can put my name on a report that's going to mean nothing. Because I'm not going to change anything. And I don't think that's, if it's happening to me, it's happening to a lot of people, because I consider myself very pro-Norfolk, pro-Northeast Nebraska. I've got a business that I continue to invest in, like a lot of you. I want for my kids to be able to grow up and be right here. And it does look daunting. And so one of my reporters went up to Hartington. Oh, let me back up. This is the population by city. And you can see this is since 2010. So Kearney is growing on average by 425 people per year. Grand Island 367, Hastings is losing on average 28 a year, North Platte losing 118, Columbus growing by 138, and we are growing at on average 26 people per year. And in 2023, that starts to go like this. Now Kearney, people will say, oh, they've got UNK. Here's the deal, Kearney has figured out more than just UNK. They're spending in arts and culture, they're spending in public safety, they have a committed business community that's putting up technology type businesses. They are doing good things. We've been there to learn from them. But 26 people a year, I met a dentist here in this room the other day. She said her goal is to get 20 new patients a month to keep growing her dentistry practice. She says it's disheartening to know that 26 people on average move into the city of Norfolk, net positive a year. We are not growing. We are not growing, and we are losing young people. Those are facts. And you can see on top of it, our wages are $2,000 below the state average. And so a lot of people say, well, we got to have places for young people. Well, if you can get the same job in Omaha or Dallas or Des Moines and you're making $10 more an hour or $5,000 more a year, yes, you are going to leave. We have to be cognizant of the fact that we have to pay the market rate, because our employees will leave us to work other places. And if not, you're taking advantage of them for the purpose of building your business. And long term, it's not a winning strategy. We have to talk about wages. We have to talk about the fact that we have 35% fewer four-year degree workers in our workforce than the state average. We're going to need more people with four-year degrees to remain competitive with the rest of the state. So I had a reporter go up to Hartington and come back with this story. And the story was basically that the 4-H Council of America hired the Bridge Span group out of San Francisco to do a study. And the study was to see how socially mobile people in the United States are by county. I did not know what social mobility was, but I found out that social mobility is a change in social status relative to one's current social location within a given society, which tells me nothing other than the social mobility is the idea that you can grow up in a house without a lot of resources, and you can cross income boundaries and strata, and you can end up later in life in a high income household. Money's not everything, but for the purpose of this study, that's what they're checking. And the reality is, according to this study, the brown is really bad. It's least upwardly mobile. If you grow up, or if you're born in the American Southeast, in Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and you're poor, that's not likely going to change. The data shows you that the odds are against you. You're most likely going to die poor because of the conditions of the way the society is organized. You can see those white counties. That doesn't mean anything bad. There's just not enough people in those counties to get data. But the dark blue counties are the most socially mobile counties in America, which no one would be surprised that we're in a highly socially mobile area of the United States. I wasn't. And I didn't really think that much of the study until I saw this. People work hard, like to drink, especially in Cedar County. But I never really thought much, about social mobility, because I never really thought about it before, but they had specifically identified Laurel, Hardington, Verdigris, Randolph, Crofton, and Wausau. And what's interesting about that is there's no difference between Hardington and Battle Creek. There's no difference between Wausau and Stanton, or Crofton and Pierce. These are towns we know. These are towns we understand. And I know that when I'm at the law firm and we hire a legal assistant who was raised on a dairy farm in Creighton, that I've just hired the gold. I've just hired the gold. I know that I'm getting somebody that's honest, that works super hard, doesn't expect anything to be given to her, and she will do whatever it takes to make sure it's right, because she is there to do a good job for her employer. And the reality is that we are raising the goal. Of all the problems that we have with our population, we are raising the workforce that the rest of America wants. And I hadn't really thought about it this way, but there's a reason that your high school classmates from these small towns end up as the CEO of an Atlanta company, or they're in New York City, or they're in Chicago, or maybe they're right here in town. Maybe they don't have $1 million, but they are the goal. And the reality is that towns this size, their place in America is rock solid, because they create the workforce that everybody else in America wants. And there are 6 factors that this study identified that said this is why they're the goal. Number 1, high expectation that youth opt in. If you are a high schooler in Battle Creek, Nebraska, there's a 90% chance that you're in an extracurricular activity. Because if you're not out for something, all of your friends are, and there's a ton of peer pressure. That's just the way it works in Battle Creek. Norfolk Public, 50% chance. Nothing wrong with Norfolk Public. It's a Class A school. A lot more kids, not as many spots in the basketball team. But if you're in Battle Creek, you're involved. Number 2, and I did not make this up, but strong informal support systems. We don't realize it in the media, but if you win a blue ribbon at the Cedar County Fair, you're going to be on the front page of the Cedar County newspaper. If you score a touchdown at Pierce in the playoffs, you're going to be on NCN and instant replay. We build our media around kids, and these kids, whether it's in acting or in speech or in sports, we don't realize it in the media, but they walk out of that school on a cloud because somebody recognized what they did outside of the school, and it gave them a quiet confidence that they take with them the rest of their life. Nobody's doing that for every kid in Georgia. No one's doing that for kids in South Carolina. That is something that happens in the American Midwest. Third, we're focusing on early career pathways. Fourth, we're building life skills. If you're growing up in Tilden, you're learning how to tie knots, and pitch a tent, you're in 4-H and FFA and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and you're selling things. It's the way these small towns are built. Fourth, accessing opportunities. If you want to be a mortician and you're 9 and you're in Creighton, chances are you can probably watch him involved in Bonnie, down on Main Street, because there are very few barriers to doing whatever you want to do. And then the one I really want to send you home with tonight is that think about what we have been teaching our kids about sustaining the community. Imagine for a second that you're a high school senior that graduated last May from Wisner-Pilgrim. What have the last 10 years of your life been like? When you were in 3rd grade, the world financial markets collapsed. Mom and Dad were worried. It was all that you could hear about. In 2013, twin tornadoes destroyed the town you live in, maybe, kill 3 people, take everything, everybody's roof off. You're living in a shelter or at grandma's house. If you watch your mom and dad get up every day and put their lives back together, to the point that in 2015 it was just a bad memory. And then commodity prices are low. And then by the time you're a senior in high school, the worst flood in Nebraska history, what are mom and dad doing? They're filling sandbags on top of the fire truck. And you watched it all happen. You can't make that up. Imagine being 80 years old, having been through that. You're going to tell your parents, I didn't live through the Great Depression, but I lived through 10 years in Pilgrim that would have curled your toes, because every single year we had something really bad happen. And what did we teach our kids? We taught our kids to get back up and get going. And in Omaha, you go to their events down there, they say, we want to keep the kids that have 30 ACTs, 30 plus ACTs. I don't care about ACTs. I really don't. I care about grit, perseverance, resilience, and tenacity. Those are the skills that matter in the 21st century. Those are the skills that are going to make you a commodity in the 21st century. And we don't know it, but you look around and that's all we've got in these small towns. And so my point here is we have something to sell. We have these kids that come from farms in these small towns that creates the best workforce in America. So here's what we think as a group needs to happen to change our future. And this, especially for folks that live in Norfolk, is a really big deal. And if you own a business or you're part of a business, you got to think about moving to downtown. You got to think about how you interact with this. We looked at the places that are successful. And what we found in America right now, places that are succeed, they have a couple characteristics. There's a reason kids from Norfolk end up in places like the Haymarket or in Denver, and that's because they like to live in an area where they walk out their front door or the door at work, and when they open it up, they see somebody else their age. You got to remember, these young people coming out of college, they come from a college campus where they're around people their age at all times. And so they move to Norfolk, and what does Chris Williams see when he opens up the door to Newsdale, Nebraska? He sees a parking lot in a strip mall, and he gets in his car, he drives to his apartment next to Set the Bar, and he doesn't encounter any 24-year-old women. He goes to the bar that night, he doesn't see any 24-year-old women. He is in a world by himself with 40-year-olds. And we have to intentionally create spatial density. We have to take the concept of density and we have to artificially create it. Like when the Eskimos are trying to survive in Alaska, what do? They huddle together to use their body heat to survive. Same concept. I shouldn't go down that road. After Mr. Sheath laughed, I thought, oh, what did I just say? Tyler. We have to use the same concept. So what we did was we drew these lines around downtown Norfolk. So the top line is Brosh Avenue, the bottom line is Madison Avenue, that is 7th Street, and that is 1st Street. We can't control what happens in all of Norfolk. Nobody can. We can barely control what happens downtown. But the idea is we have to create an environment that somebody who is 23 has an experience in Norfolk that we're not trying to keep up with Lincoln or Omaha or Des Moines. That is something that Norfolk isn't today. And that is an area where we use the principle of density to create an environment that is unique to our town for young people. So what happens here? We're asking employers that have a young workforce to leave their buildings throughout the city of Norfolk and to relocate their business into this 3x7 block area. So that we take these properties up and down these streets and we move a day companies down to downtown Norfolk. And you know what? That's asking a lot because we're asking somebody that built a beautiful building that has a young workforce to leave that building and move it downtown. We're asking other companies to do the same. And I will tell you, many of these are for it because they're having trouble finding people. And they know that if they do get somebody young and talented, they oftentimes leave for the reasons we discussed about not finding somebody to be with at that age in life. And so the goal is to get 1,000 new employees working in this 3x7 block area downtown in the next decade, or really in the next couple of years. And if you own a business and you're not downtown, and it would make sense for you to come downtown, you need to talk to somebody, in this group. You'll see it you'll see who to talk to at home. Next is scholarships. What a lot of towns do is they say, hey, we need to get UNL to open a campus here so that we can have college kids. That's not how the game's played. They don't come anywhere. They don't, we aren't going to have a four-year school at headquarters in Norfolk. So what we've done is we said we want 75 students each year to get really good scholarships to Wayne State College in 3 areas: communications, IT, and business. They get the scholarship freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. Their senior year, June 1st, after their junior year, they move to downtown Norfolk. They live in downtown Norfolk, and hopefully they work in downtown Norfolk or in a Norfolk business from June 1st to April 30th of the next year, 40 hours a week. And that job is their credit their senior year. They have the first 3 years to get all those classes out of the way, and they have a program to get them through. And then their senior year, they're living and working and hopefully doing it. They have to do it all in downtown Norfolk. So suddenly we got 1,000 people new walking the streets in this 3x7 block area, and now we've got 75 22-year-olds and 21-year-olds that are celebrating their 21st birthday on our main street. And it might so happen that they start dating. And imagine him and her are dating. They each have jobs in different businesses. They live kind of in the same area because they have to live in this 3x7 block area. They get offered jobs at those places at the time they graduate. They have less of a reason to leave. A, they're dating somebody. He's here, she's there. They're living close to each other. Suddenly we're giving them a reason to stay that they don't otherwise have because we're being very intentional about density and opportunity. Third, one of the challenges with this wave of automation that's going to take the middle supply chain jobs is that the economy is being fed off of innovation. If you come up with an app that does something, or if you come up with hardware that makes it easier to do your job and has less expense in people, you're going to make money. And right now, the places in America that are doing that are Boston, Austin, San Jose, maybe on some front, St. Louis. There are people in these places that are starting apps, and when I hear it on the TV or the radio, and they say, hey, this guy just started this app and he hasn't really made a dime yet, but it's worth $1.1 billion or whatever it is. To me, I think that's outrageous. But the reality is the economy has said that action there has value because he's disintermediated the supply chain and he's about to make a bunch of money. And the people that start those companies come from places like Creighton. The guy who started Twitter is from North Platte, Clark's. These people come from our areas because if you're a farm kid and it's a Sunday and you're in harvest, you come up with solutions to keep it going when something breaks down. And those are the skills it takes to be an innovator in the economy. And so I'm on the board of this thing called Invest Nebraska. We're going to make $4.5 million of investment capital available to entrepreneurs and builders that need at-risk capital to take a chance. And the deal is, if they get the money, they have to start their business downtown. And you know what? 9 out of 10 of those businesses will fail. They will fail. But the 1 out of 10, and I thought it was crazy when I got on the board, the 1 out of 10 that doesn't fail comes back and writes you a check for $2.7 million. And I've seen it happen in front of my eyes. This group that I'm on, they've given out, their $19 million they've given out, they have not lost a dime when you put all of their investments together. In fact, they're cash positive. And they leveraged another $70 million in investments. And they've agreed to come to Norfolk and do the same thing on our main street in a co-working center, which if you need to work at a co-working center, I hope you take advantage of it. Next is the artists. When I was in the legislature, I'm ashamed to say I probably didn't ever vote positively for the arts because I thought, why would I use someone's taxpayer dollars to support the arts when we have so many big challenges with our tax burden in Nebraska? Well, the Republican governor of Utah figured out that there is a direct link between investing in the arts and business innovation. Entrepreneurs need to be in a creative environment. Creative environments encourage people that have big ideas to do big things. And the more we invest in the arts, the more we'll see a corresponding increase in business innovation. The Republican governor of a very conservative state in Utah has invested in the arts the last 5 years, and they've seen an absolute change in the trajectory of young entrepreneurs and what they're able to do. We are proposing to create in this area artists in residence, create an environment that embraces and uses art to attract people that are creative. And if you want to know why this works, read the book, The Rise of the Creative Class. And you will see, and you know why we're focusing on creatives? Because you can't automate creativity. You can automate a pork plant, you can automate a widget making factory, but you can't automate the human mind to be creative. And that is what we want to find and mine out of these towns, and we want to celebrate it. Which means taking somebody that's creative, no matter what their beliefs are, and embracing them as they are and making them feel whole and welcome in our community. Which is something we have to make sure as a real community we do. We have to have an environment that is inclusive of people and their ideas, regardless of some of their positions on social issues that are very divisive. Next is tech hire. There's going to be people in this next decade that are going to lose their jobs at places that are employing automation. We have to take them at the community college and we have to train them to do coding. We have to teach them how to be a virtual assistant to work remotely. We've got to teach them and their children how to impart tech skills online to get a paycheck that will keep them solvent and growing and thrive financially. And that's easier said than done, but the community college is up for the task. And our fourth things on the bottom, and I'm about to turn it over to your mayor, Josh Moenning, to talk about the specific investments. But if we get the scholarship money, and I will tell you, we're going to make a very big announcement on January 22nd that the first cohort of 15 of those scholarships are going to be paid for. And the governor and the legislature are taking up a bill that would finish the rest off to make that happen. So that is on its way to being done. Existing businesses. The foundation, the Greater Norfolk Foundation, paid $3.1 million for the Alco building at the Old Mill Shopping Center. We now own that property, and we are going to put those businesses on that property, and we're going to make hospitality happen around that bend with that river, which you'll find out more about. We are actively raising the money for this. We're talking to people about the arts money. This isn't a matter of when we're going to do this. Here's the deal. We're going to do this. And if you don't want us to do it, that's fine. Say no. We're going to drive around your barricade and we're going to get it done. We're not going to take a no for an answer. And we have done enough work that I feel confident we're going to go down this path and do it. Marketing and promotion, me, the Daily News, the radio stations. We have to be not just about the athlete, but about people that work in the academic arts, people that are actors. Welcome them. Norfolk, I don't know if you know this, but it's in the process of spending about $30 million with some money raised to completely remodel the downtown. And Josh Moenning's going to tell you about that. And then here's the point I want to drive home for the small towns. If we take the presumption that when we think about what's the future of Battle Creek, Wausau, Pierce, Creighton, 12 years ago there were 50 7th graders at Creighton Elementary. This year there are 12. 50 to 12. That's the future, unabated if you don't deal with it. And so our question is, what does Creighton have of value in the economy? And the reality is that Creighton, Battle Creek, Wausau, all these small towns, they raise the gold. You go to these small towns and you get the best experience you get as a parent and as a kid, because the whole town's built around your child. And so the question is, what do we do to grow Battle Creek? And the answer from our group is, don't hand them money for housing. Let's provide free, accredited, certified early childhood education, birth to 5. So you're a high-income family, and you're in Des Moines. And I have friends I went to law school with, and they're spending $28,000 to $50,000 per kid in these big cities so that their kid is learning Mandarin as a 2-year-old. So that as a 6-month-old, they are learning motor skills. I think it's crazy, But I think it's crazy because I knew I could send my kids to Weston Center, and then I could send them to preschool, and I'd have a better product because at the end of the day, they're going to be with everybody else's kids, and they're going to be really well-rounded. But the reality is that if you are a high-income family and you're in Des Moines, and you're from Wausau, and all of a sudden Wausau's got the bucks to do early childhood education, and you're spending $28,000 a kid, and you've got 2 kids, and you can go back to Wausau, and maybe you pay something. Maybe it's unrealistic to do it free, but it's so dang cheap. A couple things are going to happen. One, you're going to be, why am I still in Des Moines? My husband can work anywhere. I can get back in the workforce because I was staying at home because it's too expensive. We can save a bunch of money. Number 2, we're likely to have more kids because it's not a $25,000 bill every time we have one per year. So we'll have more kids. And ladies and gentlemen, our problem in Battle Creek is babies. We need babies. We need people to want to have babies. We need as many babies as we can get because right now we're going the opposite direction on babies. And the third thing I would say is, how do we go wrong investing in something that we pay for anyway for the K-12 education system? All of our property tax dollars go into education. And so what I'm proposing with early childhood education is that the Norfolk businesses come to the table with money, and we write a check to any town that wants to get on board as long as we have the funds, and we meet them halfway. is the people of Pierce want to put an early childhood program in. The people of Norfolk say that is worth supporting, and we're going to give you $300,000 a year for 5 years. We're going to meet you halfway, because Norfolk dies if Pierce dies in that order. Well, not in that order. So here is what Olson Associates has drawn, and this is essentially Johnson Park. That is the river that the city is going to transform into a recreational waterway, and that is where we put the buildings of some of those companies with hospitality around the corner. People that listen to this speech, sometimes in the back of their mind they'll say, well, that's really hard, you know, how are you going to come up or get all that stuff done? If we don't do something that's transformative, nothing's going to transform itself. If we don't throw the ball and take some risks and do some things that are out of our comfort zone with not only money, but with attitudes and how we present our community to people, we are not going to see any changes. Because sniffing around the edges and spending a little money here and spending a little money there is going to get us exactly what we've got, and that is going right this way, down, down, down with the declining population. So I'm going to turn this over to Josh, and he can explain what the city's doing, and then we will answer some questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. What a talk. You can tell that Mike puts on biology and baby making. I'm not so sure this is a community development effort as much as it is a matchmaker effort on Mike's part. So stay tuned, News Channel Nebraska next chapter, dating site. So we appreciate these opportunities to talk about this because this is, in a way, Norfolk's moonshot, our effort and opportunity to address what you see as a major problem, not only for our region, but our state. We're hemorrhaging young people. And what I like about this idea and this concept is that it is placemaking. It's high stakes placemaking. I remember it's been about a year ago, Mike came to me and told me about these discussions he'd been having with Exarban and some other Omaha organizations to formulate a strategy to move forward in rural Nebraska. And he had some of these ideas. I said, let's go to lunch. We went to lunch at El Rodeo here downtown. He said, this effort needs to be focused on downtown Norfolk for a couple of reasons. Reasons that he very aptly stated, but also because the city of Norfolk was in the process and has been laying the groundwork for development like this for a couple of years now. And what I mean by that is restoring, revitalizing, and revisiting some of the work that past city leaders have done to make downtown Norfolk vibrant. And in fact, throughout history, as you look, downtown Norfolk was the beating heart of northeast Nebraska. So what I especially like about this project is we build on that past work, we reconnect to history, and we'll talk a little bit about some of these tangible efforts in revitalizing downtown, reconnecting people to the North Fork, our city's namesake, and creating a place, an environment that's attractive to retaining youth and welcoming newcomers. So to start with the North Fork, this is where the community was given life. The first settlers, the German Lutheran families who had stopped out first in Wisconsin, were encouraged by the people there to keep on moving west. They eventually settled here on the banks of the North Fork of the Elkhorn River. They liked it enough to stay, built the first commercial enterprise, which was the flour mill, which was powered, hydropowered by the North Fork. And over the years, the river's role in the community has changed from industrial purposes to flood liability. And up until the mid-1960s, the North Fork flooded a number of times. And it was at that time community leaders backing up a little bit more, Johnson Park, which you all know is proximate to the North Fork, in fact was very much connected to the North Fork River, housed an oxbow of the river back in the day when it was a Works Progress Administration project established in the late 30s, early 40s. A lot of emphasis put on aesthetics and beautification. It was similar to what you might find at Sunken Gardens in Lincoln or even Worthington Gardens in Omaha, and was really a regional attraction as far as park and green space. Some investment that the city has made here in the last few years in this area. The East Norfolk Avenue Bridge replacement was completed almost 2 years ago. It was all in all about a $6 million project, and it replaced what needed to be replaced, an aging, deteriorating bridge, but also emphasis was put on making it aesthetically pleasing, accessible for pedestrians. The trail was placed into the bridge that now connects to the Johnson Park Trail. And this is just to illustrate some of the investment that the city has made in this downtown district to date. An overview of that project. Downtown business investment has increased significantly in the last few years, as we can all see and feel as you experience downtown Norfolk as it is. And I think we'll just see more of that in the coming years. One of the programs that helped facilitate that was the facade improvement program, which is a state-funded program, a one-to-one match with property owners through the community development business grant. Brosh Avenue is a big infrastructure investment project that was supposed to take place this year, though it fell victim to the flooding. The efforts of contractors who were available to do the work were diverted to flood recovery work, and so this project got delayed a year, but will start in the spring of 2020. This is a complete street reconstruction of Brosh Avenue, which, as we all know, desperately needs it, from 5th to 1st Street. And again, besides beyond replacing the street, we'll put a lot of emphasis on making the corridor walkable and green, and really featuring it as a key link from the downtown area to the riverfront. Some new things, again, in downtown, which you saw pop up this year: introduction of public art, and this is to the credit of the Area Visitors Bureau, who took the lead on the project at Norfolk Art Center. And the city worked together to identify artists, place artwork, and this is a ongoing program that you'll see continue to change out year to year. So it will freshen and reintegrate public art into downtown spaces year in and year out, which is important as to the things that Mike was talking about in placemaking in downtown district. Riverpoint Square is a project that was again assisted by a community development block grant. We worked with, or are working with Olson Associates on converting this area at 3rd and Norfolk Avenue, the parking lot at the Johnny Carson murals, into a pocket park and a space, a public gathering space for farmers markets, community festivals. There'll be a performance area. This is another project that was delayed this year, but will be completed in 2020. Johnson Park redevelopment. So reconnecting the park to the river is critical to this project. Johnson Park was severely impacted by flooding in the early 60s, and ever since that time it's been somewhat minimally maintained by the city. what I really like about this project and revitalizing this area is it gives new birth to park space in a part of town that doesn't have a lot. There's not a lot of accessible park space on the east end of town. In making Johnson Park a true community park that has some of the features of our other parks throughout town, I think will be of key benefit to people in this area of town. So what we've talked about in terms of our master planning, again, this has not happened overnight. We've been working this over a matter of the last couple of years. An amphitheater, like for performance space. I don't know how many attended the festival in August, which typically have been held downtown at 3rd and Norfolk, but this first year held at Johnson Park. Reception to that was very good. I feel a lot of opportunity and potential for Johnson Park to host community events in the future. Again, making the park and the area around it more walkable, pedestrian friendly, improving parking in the area, and renewed emphasis on beautification and landscaping. The crux of the public infrastructure improvements in this area is the restoration of the North Fork River. And what I mean by that is making the river accessible again to the public, essentially by removing the remnant of the dam structure under First Street. So as you know, there's a spillway which creates a 12.5, 13-foot abrupt drop right there at First Street, which prevents the river from being usable by those who want to engage in water sports or in recreation, kayaking, and tubing. So the impetus of this project was the city going to our local natural resources districts. Mike Sosek is here, the general manager of NRD, about 2 years ago, now, right? 2.5, 2 years ago, and saying, let's partner on recreating this river space. And again, none of this is, we didn't grab this out of thin air. There's been plans and discussions about this going back 45 to 50 years. In fact, this restoration project was a priority project of the NRB back in the 70s, but for various reasons just never got done. One of those reasons was the city back at that time was not ready to be a full partner. Well, we expressed our interest in today being a full partner on this. The NRD board decided to move ahead with the project and is contributing $1 million to the restoration piece of the project, which really gave us a green light to move forward and put together some of the plans that you see today. So the idea is removing that spillway and replacing it with 8 different drop structures. So we're basically leveling out that elevation drop over about a 1,800-foot span, 8 different drop structures that are 1.5 to 2 feet drop each, and that in effect creates a whitewater park in the heart of downtown Norfolk. We're not the first ones to do this. This has been happening in the Midwest for a number of years. We're under contract with a design firm out of Boulder, Colorado that did this project in Manchester, Iowa, Salida, Colorado, Riverwise, the design firm, also did the Boulder project. And this is not simply about the river. In a lot of cases, the inspiration, motivation to do this is the community development that comes with it. And that comes in terms of tourism, which surprisingly is Nebraska's and Madison County's 3rd largest industry. And the partnerships that we've created to help pay for this have been crucial to making it go forward. I mentioned the NRD. The river restoration portion of this project is a little bit more than $3 million itself. NRD is committed to $1 million. The city of Norfolk has budgeted $1 million, primarily through Keno funds, which are designated for community betterment. And we have a team of citizens who are doing private fundraising for the rest of it, and that was the original plan. Now coming along with Mike's project and the discussions we're having with potential Omaha resources that can speed up some of that fundraising. Johnson Park in itself, we project $2.8 million worth of improvements there, again to be assisted with private fundraising and Keno dollars that are designated for, have historically been designated for parks in the city. First Street Bridge replacement. So as we replace that dam and do this work, we've determined engineering-wise that First Street Bridge has to be replaced as well. So the city is working on a grant application through the federal government, a build grant infrastructure that provides money for local infrastructure projects, and we're hopeful that we have success there. Just walk through those. I should also mention that the SID, local SID, is committed to this. They have some responsibility and jurisdiction in the bank area of the riverfront. And the timeline. So we, the city council, we have a few city council members here tonight, Rob Merrill, Shane Clausen, former city councilman Jared Dahlcutter. City council earlier this year green-lighted this project and gave full authorization for Riverwise to move forward in the planning and design needed to do the project and permitting. We have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers for a permit, so we're thick in the middle of that process, and it's not a quick and easy process. It will take most of this next year, and we anticipate, all going well, getting into construction on the river restoration portion of this in 2021, with Johnson Park improvements going into 22 and potentially 23. Yeah. So, how you can be involved in this, and we do really hope to broaden the base of interest and engagement in this project, not just within the community of Norfolk, but throughout the region. Of course, there's fundraising, and we have a team of people that are lined up, engaged in that now. Education, local support of this. There's a lot of questions. I mean, this is, like I said, this is a moonshot. This is a big idea. But again, it's not something we've grasped out of thin air. There's a lot of history to this, and helping this move forward, I think, will require a lot of people being informed about what it is and what we're trying to do with it. And so your involvement that way is helpful. I know Mike's doing a lot of work on the early childhood education portion of this. You want to speak more about that right now?
But just to go through this list, like fundraising, this is unlike a fundraiser we've ever had, because when you're fundraising for the Y or the nursing college or whatever, you build a building and everybody sees the building go up and you say, okay, we reached our goal, the building gets built. This is a 10-year fundraise. It's a 10-year drive. It's a 10-year, what are we trying to do? We are trying to get to 2031 and look at the net migration table for Madison County and see a lot more green than any red, especially in that 20 to 34 area. And it's not as difficult as you think to do what we need to do. We essentially have to capture 40% of the people that are going to college here and then bring in new people throughout the 10-year period in different age groups. And we will have a turnaround that will build upon itself. But when we ask you for money, we're going to want your help. We're going to want your money. We're going to want you to invest in this. We're going to want you to tell your employer that this is something they should do. And if you don't feel that strongly about it, then talk to us and tell us what barriers or hurdles you see to getting the money raised. Because we are going to need the money from your employer, from you, from your friends, and there's certain places we're asking for money that we'll hopefully get a lot from some foundations, but we're going to need buy-in. Second, we need you to go to city council meetings. We need you to go places. There are people that don't like change. There are people that don't want to see anything happen. There are people out there that are going to say this is never going to work. If you believe in it, don't be one of the people that doesn't stand up and say something about it, because when you're 40 and you remember being at this meeting, and if it doesn't work, you're going to wonder what happened. And People that get involved get things done. People that run for office put their name out there and they take the beating from people that don't agree. And you do it because you want to see something good happen. Well, you need to do that too. You need to, when somebody's bashing on a concept, you need to stand up and say, listen, I went to the presentation. These are the reasons. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything we want, but stand up and fight for something. The third thing is early childhood education. There's going to come a time when people in this city are going to be asked to do something for not just their neighborhood and not just their town, but for Battle Creek or for Wausau. Help explain to people that we are connected to those towns. And if we don't want to help these little towns around us, we aren't going to have a future. Next is, we need to build a culture that is employee friendly to young people in their 20s. That means we have to be transparent about what we're paying our employees. We have to meet or exceed wage standards if you're an employer. We need to take pride in employers that do go the extra length to pay more than they may even have to get the best workforce possible. We have to have people that will go to bat for cultural opportunities and to promote diversity, because that's where we're going to get creative people. And an environment where everybody feels welcome. I don't think I'm a Republican, Josh is a Republican, a lot of us in this room are probably Republicans. Newsflash, a lot of people at college are not Republicans. And when they come to Norfolk, if the only thing that people want to talk to them about is what Republicans believe, they're not going to stick around, and they have a lot to offer. We have to be open to their ideas. And if we don't agree, we have to make it a comfortable place for them to be. And then the final thing is we have to, and we're working with Gallup, they have an assessment called the BP10 assessment. It checks the builder skills that a 13-year-old might have. And 2 to 3% of the population are builders, they're entrepreneurs. Most people, obviously, a great majority are not. But we need to find that kid, and a lot of times, here's what happened in Lincoln. They gave this test to all the Lincoln 13-year-olds, and then a bunch of moms started calling the school crying, saying, you're not gonna believe this, but I'm so happy my kid came home with a builder test that says he's a high achiever as a builder. And the lady in the school said, well, why are you crying? She says, because my son has been a behavior problem since he was 5. He's in the principal's office all the time. He mounts back to us at home. He's nasty, the way he treats us sometimes. And the reality is, he does not follow the rules. He does not care what other people think. And he's going to do what he wants in life. And he's got leadership skills that nobody has ever recognized. And just because he doesn't get A's doesn't mean he's not going anywhere. A lot of the people that start businesses don't get good grades. And they don't care what other people think, and they don't follow the rules. And that's why they break the rules to do things that are big in life. And we need to find those kids, and we need to make sure that it's okay not to be the quarterback of the football team, but we're going to pick you up, we're going to lift you up, and we're going to get you some cash to start your first business when you're a junior in high school. So when you leave Norfolk for college or whatever happens, you're going to remember that we had our eye on you, and you're going to feel like coming back because we believed in you before even maybe your parents did, given your behavior. And so everything we're doing is designed to meet a goal, and the goal is to have net migration as positive by 2031. If we get to 2031, it's the same story. We know how that ends. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Would you like me to get you a drink?